Okay, so from the world of physical games back to the world of virtual games. So I'm Dominik and I will talk a little bit about the game I'm currently working on, which is called Smalltown Architect, a European city builder. And what the hell does it mean to be a European city builder, you may ask? So let me quickly talk a little bit about urbanism and the difference of North American to European cities. So this is what your typical US city looks like, without getting too political, but in general, if of course there are exceptions like New York City and so on, but your typical city will look like something like this, with a lot of low density single family homes spread all over the place. Then your compressed downtown area with tall skyscrapers with questionable architecture, and of course plenty of car infrastructure, crazy 12-lane highways, and a lot of parking lots. In contrast to that, this is ideally what your European city looks like. Cute little old towns, um, historic and preserved buildings with beautiful architecture, a lot of restaurants and shops lining the streets, and most importantly, a lot of people actually on the streets and walking around, and yeah, just a lot of activity. And of course, Linz is the best example of all of this. So what about gaming? Most of the current city builders out there really focus on the American model. So SimCity, which is probably the original city builder, has always been really focused on that since the SNES days. So they, yeah, really focused on traffic management and on building dense downtowns with skyscrapers and so on. And City Skylines, which in a sense is the spiritual successor, and now the kind of de facto city builder, definitely the most prominent one. They really took the same formula, and in a way, it's more of a traffic management game actually. Like when you start the tutorial of City Skylines, the first thing they mention is that roads are the most important part of your city, which kind of sums it up. Of course, there are now plenty of mods which allow you to do a lot more things, but at its heart, basically, it's a traffic management game. And in my humble opinion, it also looks a little grim when you have like the cities like that. Those screenshots always look a little depressing and gray to me. So on the other side of things, we have the medieval type of city builders. There are a lot out there that kind of focus on historical accuracy, play in different kinds of time periods. This is more like the image that I'm imagining, but all of these games are really set in a medieval setting, or with games like Anno. They have, for instance, like a post-medieval 1800 setting, and now their new game will be in the Roman Empire. But basically, the focus is on historic context, and they also always focus a lot on resource management. You have to build like farms around and mines and so on to provide resources to build your town. So yeah, that's the medieval city builders. And then a third category I'm calling cozy building games. So there are mostly two examples in the last years: Townscaper and Tinyglade. Tinyglade has been immensely popular indie game last year, and yeah, they really focus on beauty and really free-form building and creativity. The thing is, it looks awesome, but there is no real gameplay beyond free building. No goals, no achievements, and also the towns are completely lifeless at this point, so there is no simulation at all going on. There are no people walking around the streets, so for me it also feels a little empty. So yeah, I tried to combine elements from all of these three categories in a way to build like a small town city builder with kind of European ideal city in mind. So let me show you a little trailer to that you see what the current state. that's the current state of the game. Let me talk about some technical stuff. I won't go into too much detail, but just some facts that I thought might be interesting. So, as you saw, there is quite a bit going on in the scenes already, and there are quite a few systems at work to produce these scenes currently. Um, at the heart of it is the building generator, which is also the first thing that I worked on. So my goal was to kind of have procedurally generated buildings, where every building looks a little bit individual, and no two buildings look completely the same. So all of these buildings are made up of individual building parts, which I then combine according to certain rules. And yeah, there are, for instance, a lot of different window types, different wall elements, roof types, whatsoever. And I currently have different architectural styles, which kind of define the rules basically and the types of facades that are used. So ideally, you really get this organic looking row of houses basically. One of the most important things that I tried from the beginning on was to, or yeah, one of the key elements is to not use a grid. Most city builders out there use a grid, which is understandable because it saves you a lot of trouble for the player and also for the developer. But I thought that not having a grid allows for much more organic looking cities and a lot more variation basically. So for instance, I have completely free-form resizing of the buildings in all directions, similar to like Tiny Glade is doing it. And of course, the building generator needs to take care that every setup basically looks good in a way. Yeah. Also a few words on optimization. So I'm generally not a big fan of like early on optimization without knowing if it's actually required for performance. But in that case, like for city builders in general, it's probably a good idea to do this early on because you will get into lots of issues otherwise. These scenes tend to get quite complex early on, especially with the building generator that produces a lot of individual objects, up to over 100 per building easily. So you will end up with a lot of draw calls, which Unity and all game engines really don't like, and it can cause a lot of overhead for the CPU GPU communication basically. So you really want to reduce draw calls, which can be done by combining all of these individual meshes into one. And yeah, so that was one of many optimizations that I did early on, for instance. Another tool or another system at work is the terrain system and the paving. So sadly, I decided to have verticality in the game. Yeah, bad decision. Definitely bad for my sanity. But I thought, just as with the no grid system, it allows for a lot more options and creativity. But of course, this comes with a lot of stuff that you have to consider and check all the time. So I've also implemented real-time terrain modification, so the user can freely work the terrain, build lakes, build mountains, and the paving system. That means that basically all of the cobblestones and so on you see, these can be really painted onto the terrain. So not like in some other city builders where the streets are kind of paths, but here it's really a painting tool. And for that I'm using Unity's terrain painting system, which is also a little interesting to use. So basically I'm modifying the height maps for the terrain modification, and the splat maps, they are basically textures which define where which texture is painted on. I modify both of them in code so that the user can do it at runtime. And the standard method that Unity has on their documentation does all of this on the CPU. So when I tried to improve the resolution, so on the top screenshot you can see the edges of the cobblestone is really blurry, so I wanted to increase the resolution, and this basically completely tanked performance because this has to be basically done every frame when the user draws. So yeah, I tried to find for solutions there, and at some point I found a post from the Unity forums which mentioned, or actually when you scroll down somewhere, a Unity staff member mentioned that there is a way to do this on the GPU, and there is actually an experimental Unity API that provides you with the methods for it. But really, I had the feeling that I'm the first person ever to discover this, and it was buried way down somewhere. So yeah, luckily the Unity staff member also posted a little code snippet, which was the only way I was ever able to get this up and running. So if someone ever wants to do Unity real-time terrain modification, let me know, and you will save yourself a lot of trouble. One more thing I want to talk about is the people simulation. So in order to get these hustling, bustling towns, I wanted to have a lot of people on the street. So I'm currently running a simulation that simulates every person basically, and every person is unique and has their own identity and their kind of daily routine that they're doing. And they're currently constantly looking out for stuff to do in the city. There's a number of interactable objects like benches and outdoor seating areas which the people can interact with, and they also will kind of interact with each other. They will stop spontaneously and talk with each other and so on to get really this kind of organic vibe that you want. And for the faces, I've actually reused a little project I've done a few years ago, where I've done like a procedural face generator with sprites in Unity, and I thought, why not salvage this and use it for this project. So I'm now basically from these sprites creating a render texture that is then used on the faces of the character models and roughly mapped on them. So it looks a little janky still, but I think it kind of reminds me a little bit about the Nintendo Wii characters, so I think it looks somewhat charming if you view it from a little bit of a distance. Let's talk a little bit about marketing stuff. So this project I really tried to concentrate on marketing early on. I really wanted to kind of do a little bit of market research before I spend a lot of time on the project. So one of the first things I thought about was personas, target audience. So as any marketing guru would suggest, create a list of personas who are your players, and I kind of split them in roughly at least 4 categories. So one of them, the urbanists. These are the people who are really interested in these types of urban design topics and so on, and there are actually quite a lot of them online currently. They are interested in like real world scenarios. They might like to rebuild certain parts of real world cities and play around with different infrastructure, tear down car infrastructure, parking lots, replace them with cycling and public transport options. Then we have simulation fans, so gamers who are currently playing a lot of city builders and simulation heavy games. They are probably mostly interested in a good game loop, and they want to have some goals and some way of the game to actually rate them, how well are they doing. On the other opposite side, we have the cozy gamers. These are people who generally don't want to have like specific goals, but rather a relaxing and chill gaming experience, and they probably are focusing more on beautiful graphics and sound design. And finally, streamers. So I'm generally not a big fan of creating like a streamer first game, but I think it's always a good idea to have them in mind, kind of what their needs would be. And in my case, I think they would value to be able to create very unique types of towns, which probably look completely different from all the other players, and mess around with the game systems, which can be a little janky, can have some surprising features and details hidden. And yeah, it's also important, I think, to be able to understand it quickly. For viewers that join after a few hours, I think my game lends itself rather well that you really understand easily what's going on. But it's also still engaging if you're watching for a longer period of time. So with that in mind, I tried to do a little bit of market research first. So very early on, I did a post on Reddit after like 1 or 2 months of work to see whether people actually like the idea or not. And yeah, this was a pretty similar video to the trailer, but just an earlier stage basically of everything. But the result was pretty, so I was pretty happy with the result. 400 upvotes, 26k views on the Unity 3D subreddit. I posted this, no particular reason, but it's just a subreddit which has a lot of Unity developers, and is pretty easy with like promotion and so on. But yeah, the comments also were pretty nice. Especially the top comment I was really happy with, from the original creator of Zoo Tycoon. He said that this game looks adorable, so I think that was pretty cool. So yeah, I got a lot more confidence after this video and decided to put in more work into this project. And I continued with my Reddit market research. Now not so much research anymore, but marketing. I posted on some urbanism subreddits. So the first one was r/fuckcars, which is a pretty cool subreddit, and I tailor-made videos for them. So in that case, I made a scenario where you can wreck a parking lot and some ugly big box stores before replacing them with your little cute town. So luckily people really liked this on this subreddit, so that gained quite a bit of attention with over 1,400 upvotes. And I pretty much did the same thing a few weeks later with the Suburban Hell subreddit. Yeah, there are a lot of these subreddits. And yeah, also made a tailor-made experience to kind of cater to their needs. So that was even better received with 1,600 upvotes and 80k views. So yeah, I was really happy with the results there, and the overall sentiment was really positive, and shut up and take my money was kind of what I took away from, which probably is a good sign. So yeah, I thought, hey, maybe I'm onto something here. So I did one more Reddit post a month ago, roughly, on the Austria subreddit. Maybe somebody actually saw it there. That one was really successful, which I didn't expect at all. I again made a tailor-made experience. I rebuilt an Austrian main square from the city of Scherding, which lends itself pretty well because I already had the style of these buildings pretty much in the game, so I didn't really have to do any specific. I didn't have to model any specific stuff for this particular example. And I just rebuilt kind of the main square there and posted this video here. And yeah, this one blew up really well with almost 3k upvotes and 180k views, which I think is still among the top 10 posts on the Austria subreddit this year. So I was really happy with that. The comment section was also pretty funny. So yeah, the funny thing here, or one more story here, is that I actually posted the video. When I first posted it, it also gained a lot of momentum quickly. Within 1 hour it had 200 upvotes, and I thought, man, cool, that is going really well. And then refreshing page and suddenly it's gone. So the mods removed the video because of excessive self-promotion. So I was really mad about that, and I discussed a little bit with them and told them that, hey, this does seem like a really good fit for the Austria subreddit, because I actually made it just for that. And yeah, I could actually convince them in the end to be allowed to repost it, and luckily it got quite a bit of attention very quickly again. So yeah, it's a fine line on Reddit. I've also summarized this here a little bit. So I really like Reddit because it's a platform, probably one of the only, if not the only platform, where you can actually reach a really large audience with 0 followers. it's a really merit-based algorithm still, which means that when you post something, that I think every post really gets the same attention at first, and only then, after people upvote or downvote your post, it is decided how well it's going. And you have super niche communities there with the subreddits. You have the most enthusiastic people generally around, and they will give you sometimes brutally honest feedback. So if you're not prepared to receive brutally honest feedback, you shouldn't probably post on Reddit, but maybe on LinkedIn or something. The downside is that there is a really anti-commercial attitude. I mean, that's not necessarily a downside for the user, but you have to be really careful when posting there, because they really don't like self-promotion. It has to kind of tread this fine line between self-promotion and posting something that the community really likes. So if you're lucky to hit that mark, you really have a lot of opportunity, I think, on Reddit. So yeah. Other than Reddit, I'm posting YouTube devlogs, or at least I posted a few. The thing with devlogs is always that you're targeting, or you're reaching developers, not players, and it also takes a lot of effort to create them. So at this point, I'm not quite sure whether it's worth actually the effort. Ideally, you have something really special in your devlogs to stand out. It's really hard. There are so many devlogs from indie game developers, and a lot of them are really the same and not so interesting to watch. So I'm also struggling with it. I'm not a great video editor or anything, so I'm still struggling with finding that balance or that niche. But yeah, my devlogs did decently so far, mostly because of my pre-existing subscriber count, but I'm not sure if it's actually worth the effort currently. So yeah. And finally, I'm trying to build some following on Blue Sky. I've started with 0 followers there, so I'm trying to build organically. It is a very slow process, but it's I think it's working, and yeah. I definitely have better results there compared to X. I'm not sure what I'm doing wrong on X, but it's not easy to grow there organically. But yeah, that was basically my marketing method so far. The road ahead is that I am currently trying to think a lot about gameplay. I want to have some gameplay. I want to have some goals, some achievements, but I don't want to turn it into a crazy management game. I think that would be at odds with the general theme of the game. So yeah, that's one of the main development efforts. And I am planning a public demo launch some point in the near future, because I think this is a type of game which you really have to play in order to fully appreciate. And I think I hopefully can expect a lot of wishlist gains from people playing the demo, and hopefully also influencers or streamers playing the demo. And I'm targeting currently the next fest in October, and maybe I can still do a launch this year. I want to launch early access because I think this is the ideal game for early access. In a way, it's infinitely replayable, and it makes sense to just constantly add new content. So yeah, that would be the current goal. Alright, so if that sounds like the kind of game you would like to play, I would appreciate a wishlist on Steam, or if you want to know more about the development story, you can follow on YouTube and see a little bit of content there. Other than that, thanks for listening. Any questions? Yeah.
Thinking about the post that you made, like on urbanism and
Uh-huh.
where it's about destroying like a supermarket and a parking lot
Yeah.
and stuff. Like, did you actually think about making this into the game? Like sort of mission where it's like, hey, here's a part of the city, destroy it, make something beautiful.
Yeah,
like
it's one thing I'm considering. I have sort of scenarios similar to Roller Coaster Tycoon or stuff like that, where you have some pre-existing worlds and you have to reach some goals in there. Yeah, I'm definitely considering them. It is a little bit at odds with the cozy game theme. So like the the angry left-wing urbanism thing is a little at odds with the cute, cozy, build something nice theme.
Maybe just like
but
two buttons when you
yeah,
start a game, which
yeah,
political
yeah.
thing you want.
I think it would definitely be something to stand out from all of the other city builders, because I've never seen any other game doing something like that. So I think that would be pretty cool. Yeah. Yes.
How are Austria not so merciful with you? Because if I posted something like that and disputed it, I would have been banned permanently for life.
Really? Okay. Honestly, I have no idea. I think it was the first time, or I think it was the second time a Reddit post was deleted from me. The other one was from a different subreddit. So I was actually more surprised that they actually deleted it, but I honestly can't tell you. I also have no idea what kind of people are the Reddit bots, and if because it feels a little, especially if you're like an Austrian developer, it feels a little harsh to ban it. Even especially I didn't even like, it's not for sale at this point, so it felt a little harsh to claim it as excessive self-promotion. I don't know what was your specific scenario, but that sounds even harsher than yeah. I have no advice for you. I was just writing them a pretty nice message, I guess. Yeah. So it's a little bit random, definitely.
Is there a way to deconstruct the buildings as well?
Deconstruct? You mean tear it down, or?
Yes.
Yeah, there is.
Then how would you handle it? Because if you combine all the buildings into one mesh, then you would have to know how they originally were.
Yeah, good point. I'm keeping score of the original objects, so they are basically just disabled. I don't know if that's a sustainable solution at this point, but so far it worked. So I have a few scenarios where I need to revert back to the original state. For instance, when I change certain properties of the building, it also needs to know the individual parts. So I basically maintain the original state, and then just recombine it basically afterwards. So it sounds like a lot of overhead work, but it's not a big deal for the CPU.
Would you even need to like re-enable the original buildings, or just use the data they have to construct it?
You mean just reconstruct it from the parameters?
Yes.
Yeah.
Because it wouldn't have that much overhead.
Actually, now that you, yeah, actually I'm doing right this. Yeah, you're right. That's what I'm doing. I think I don't actually. Yeah, no, that's what I'm actually doing. Yeah.
And how are you handling the grass? Are they like billboards?
Grass. Yeah, those are. No, those, yeah, they are grass meshes which contain like 4 or 5 quads. So kind of not single billboards, but pretty low poly meshes. But the thing is that I haven't yet found a way to do like instancing, which is actually a really bad overhead, because they are like 1,000 draw calls or something, the grass alone, that is visible on one screen. But it's really hard with Unity URP to do GPU instancing, and I haven't found a solution yet.
I think there is a demo actually where it can generate grass from shader.
Yeah, I think I saw one of those that they are doing it with tessellation, I think. I don't know if you're referring to that, where they have like individual straws that come out of the geometry, or like geometry shaders. I think that's what it is.
I'm not quite sure.
Yeah.
I've just seen a demo with abundance of grass, and the graph card wasn't even nearly challenged.
Yeah. I don't know if there will be a better solution. The thing is that when doing it purely with shaders, it might be a little bit of an issue, because I also need to have access to the information on the CPU. Like when I paint the cobblestone over it, it needs to know where the grass is so that it can override it. But maybe that's not an issue with shaders as well.
There is a way with shader coding in Unity, as far as I know, but it's really complicated.
Yeah.
Your sanity will suffer a lot from that one.
I imagine, yeah. So yeah, for now this was like the best I came up with in a quick time period, but I'm sure it will probably change until the release. All right. Yeah.
Not a question, but I think you're correct that players don't care about devlogs and that it's a lot of
Mhm.
wasted effort.
Yeah, I mean, on the other hand, there are like so many examples, obviously on YouTube, where they really probably got most of their player base from their
Really?
devlogs. I mean, the big ones, right? That have like 100K subscribers, or like Mark Brown from Game Maker's Toolkit. He just released his first game a few months ago, and I'm sure like 95% of his players came from his YouTube channel. But of course, he has 1 million subscribers, so that's like.
But he does other things than devlogs, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah. He had most of his audience from his like
Right.
game dev or game analysis. Yeah, you're right.
But depends on the devlog. If you're like showing new features on the logs and what good things you could possibly build with that, that would be a different thing
Uh-huh.
in comparison to if you're just showing what you did in the engine.
Yeah, I went like more away from showing technical stuff because I thought that it's not interesting to see. So, but then you lose like the audience that is more interested in the in-depth technical stuff. So I think you really, when doing devlogs, you really have to think about what's your target audience. Are you targeting like technically interested people, or people who just want to have an entertaining devlog and watch it while eating or something like that? So I think that's the most important thing. But overall, it feels really hard. Yeah, as you said, with the amount of time it is to produce them, I'm not sure if it's worth it. I think it's kind of cool to document your journey. That's one positive way to view it. So I don't view it as a completely wasted effort if I have these devlogs. Yeah, not sure.
And the technical devlogs could really be helpful to other people that might have struggled with
Yeah,
the same
that's
problem.
true, but then you have to be aware that these are, of course, not your player base. So
Yeah.
you can't ask them for wish lists, or you can ask them for wish lists, but these wish lists will probably not convert to sales if these people don't care about your game.
Doesn't really work in like doesn't help you with marketing.
Yeah, it's
as you said.
If you like doing educational stuff,
Yeah,
then it's
yeah.
worthwhile, I guess. Yeah, I agree. Yeah. Okay. Then thanks again.
Thank you for giving all this journey, like from your research,
Uh-huh.
to journalism, or like marketing.
Yeah.
Because like when you usually think about game, you usually submerge completely into technical stuff.
Yeah.
But this kind of who is your future audience?
Mhm.
What are kind of pain points of this future audience who could be attracted to angry Americans and want to demolish their whole
Exactly.
street malls? Like, oh yeah, that is nice potential customer.
Yeah.
That's fascinating. Thank
Yeah.
you for sharing the
Yeah.
whole picture. It's
Thanks, I
really
appreciate it.
cool.
I have one more question.
Sure.
if you allow, you have architecture style from mostly Middle European now.
Yeah, at this
You
point.
mentioned that you want DLCs or new content for the future. So
Yeah.
guessing you referring to other art styles.
Architectural styles, yeah.
Yeah.
Like maybe Japanese or Indian, Arabic, like stuff like that. I can imagine.
Mediterranean or
Exactly.
Slavic.
Yeah, I'm currently like I have a few screenshots here from the Mediterranean set. I'm currently working on that, so
Okay.
that would be more like that. So yeah, I guess all kinds of
And
towns that have a town feeling should be represented at some point. I would imagine.
Have you thought about fantasy too, or is that just you
Ah.
want European style?
I think
or
it would be
realistic
a
style?
little bit of a too far stretch at this point. Maybe that would be an idea for a follow-up game. But I mean, the technical systems at work could be reused, like the building generator and so on. You just have to feed them like fantasy house parts. So for that, it would be cool. But I think for this game, it would be a little bit of a stretch to to go into this direction. Yeah. All right.
Cool.